So, just a quick one today. Since Trump won the election, I have seen something of a pattern emerging among certain people who've been really unhappy with the result. Not just people like Cenk Uygur, who posted a video titled "Trump immediately backpedals on the wall and more," or people like Thunderfoot, who seem to be really, really happy that Trump has already gone back on some of the promises that apparently got him elected. There's similar commentary all through the comment sections of these types of videos and articles as well. It's kind of like this weird pointing and laughing.
Ah ha 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 ha, you dumb Hicks got conned. He isn't building a wall now, he's building a fence. Boom! And he said he's not getting rid of everything in Obamacare. Boy, don't you feel like a dummy now.
Now, this seems kind of bizarre to me, considering all the fear-mongering coming from these very same people leading up to the election regarding many of Trump's promises. Their entire argument back then seemed to be,
what if he gets in? He's going to do everything he says exactly the way he says it, and then we're all going to be screwed.
You'd think these same people would be happy that he's tempering some of these promises now that he's in office. I mean, I know I am. I was expecting it. So here's one of these gloating type comments that I'm going to reproduce here that was posted in a thread that I started over on Cenk's video. This person said, I think their username is ToGoat.
Here's the red pill. Not even a week has passed and the wall is now partially a fence. Mass deportation of all illegals is now just the criminals. Key parts of Obamacare will be kept, pre-existing and young adults living with their parents. Gay marriage is here to stay. Roe v. Wade will be a state issue, not federal. A ban on all Muslims entering the country has literally disappeared off the Trump campaign website. Cannabis is now legal in several more states. It will be entertaining to see how far down the rabbit hole Trump's red pill takes us, because one thing sure ain't happening anytime soon. The Tea Party won't be getting their country back. Lol.
Is this what people believe Trump supporters are actually like? That we're going to be throwing tantrums over this stuff because we're all a bunch of sexist, racist, bigoted, low IQ, inbred dumb fucks? The entire tone of comments like these is,
ha ha, you idiots are going to be so outraged by these 7 things. It's going to be so sweet to see all your butt hurt.
I mean, this is how they expected Trump supporters to react.
Happy birthday!
No way.
Happy birthday!
It's red.
Yeah, you don't know how
Dad,
hard
it's
this
the wrong
pussy
color.
gets, sweetheart.
Dad, it's red.
Mackenzie, it's fine.
A million billion times I wanted a blue card, Dad.
Come on, Mackenzie.
Can you believe this?
And the hilarious thing is, when you actually tell these people you're not outraged or even annoyed by any of the above, they seem to find it completely impossible to believe. So I'm going to recreate my response to the quoted comment above and expand a little bit on it here for this video and the blog post that I posted today. So, point 1, the wall. If Trump had promised us a shiny red wall and some expert on birds said it would fuck with their migration patterns, so Trump opted for a different color, do you really think I'm going to start screaming,
He promised me a red wall, not a green wall. That liar went back on his promise.
if a system of fences can get the same job done, better, for less money, and be built quicker, why would anyone who voted for him complain? I would expect we'd all be pleased that not only is he flexible in terms of prioritizing function over form, but that he values taxpayer dollars enough not to waste them on some vanity project. There were always problems with the idea of a brick-and-mortar wall spanning the entire border, including but not limited to dealing with waterways and runoff from rainfall and animal migration patterns. Some have pointed out that Hillary's answer to the border problem was a fence, and now Trump's solution looks just like Hillary's, so why? Why would you choose Trump's over Hillary's? And I'm going to deal with that in the next point. Point 2, the illegals. Now, first off, some would argue that being in the country illegally actually makes you a criminal, but I know that's not what Trump meant. But even if he only wants to mass deport illegals who commit crimes other than entering illegally, that's still a good start. And shouldn't these types of illegals be the first priority when it comes to deportation? And none of this even means that other large-scale deportations wouldn't end up happening at some point, or that there won't be ongoing deportations of otherwise law-abiding illegals while the mass deportation of criminal illegals is also being carried out. A mass deportation is a targeted program of finding and rounding people up and then giving them the boot. Now, unless Trump's going to grant amnesty to other illegals, non-criminal ones, these people can still be deported on a case-by-case basis as they're discovered. No special action required other than applying the law. They don't need to be targeted. The police have instituted a special program of dedicated officers aimed at clamping down on street racing does not necessarily automatically translate to the police have officially stopped handing out speeding tickets to commuters on the freeway. And even if Trump decided he was going to allow otherwise law-abiding illegals to stay and seek citizenship, as long as those people weren't rushed to the front of the line ahead of all the people who've been doing it the proper way, I wouldn't be unhappy with that. The main problem with illegals is that their status is illegal. The fact that they're illegal means they're easily exploited by employers who can pay them less than they'd have to pay citizens, and that in turn drives everybody's wages down. Illegal status also leaves workers vulnerable to poor workplace health and safety standards because they're unable to complain to authorities without fear of being deported. A large population of people with illegal status isn't good for anyone, including, and in some ways especially, illegals themselves. And as for Hillary's fence, and now Trump's fence wall hybrid, I guess, again, it's less about form and more about function. Trump has repeatedly addressed the current policy of catch and release as inadequate. It's one of the reasons border guards have so consistently supported him. They're sick of having to deal with the same people over and over and over trying to get in. You catch them, you kick them back out, and next week you're doing it again and then again until finally those people get smart or lucky enough to not get caught just once, and then your border, whether it's a wall or a fence, has failed to perform its designated function. Now, I saw nothing from Hillary about changing catch and release to catch and incarcerate. I saw nothing in the 60 Minutes interview with Trump that indicated he had changed his general stance on illegal immigration. Just that the first order of business, the main priority, would be to get rid of the illegals who are engaged in crime on American soil. He clearly said that once that's done and the border is secure, then he would make a determination as to what to do about otherwise law-abiding illegals living on American soil. And I can tell you one thing, I would be personally happy if what he decides to do about those people is something that can change and be flexible on a case-by-case basis. This doesn't seem unsensible to me. This seems entirely reasonable. Point 3, Obamacare. So basically, Trump is keeping the good parts of Obamacare. The ones that are most likely to help working class Americans, the very people he claimed to champion throughout his campaign. The horror. Why this criticism? Because he should have thrown the baby out with the bathwater like he said he would? I mean, you guys do realize that most Republican objections to Obamacare weren't about, things like mandating insurance companies to cover pre-existing conditions. Most of those complaints were about the 20,000 pages of regulations that go along with the legislation. There are doctors who voted for Trump because the 20,000 pages of regulations that were not embodied in the bill itself but arrived in the mail a week later are insanely costly and onerous. Every fucking goddamn clinic needs its own personal Rain Man just to make sure the paperwork is filed correctly. Trump never said he would get rid of universal or affordable health care. He said he would get rid of Obamacare and replace it with a system that worked. It would be absolutely ridiculous to think that there isn't a single thing about Obamacare that isn't good or can't be made to work. I mean, this whole thing is kind of like gloating,
Obamacare covered broken bones, and now Trump's health plan is also covering broken bones. He totally went back on his promise to get rid of Obamacare because he's covering broken bones. Take that!
and why would working class Americans be upset with this? I mean, libertarians might, but libertarians aren't the only people who voted for Trump. This point just smacks of an assumption that Trump was going to rip up Obamacare for no other reason than to just stick it to that darky president, and that this was the entire reason and the only reason anyone who supported Trump's promises of health care reform would do so. Point 4. Same-sex marriage. Trump's primary objection to the SCOTUS same-sex marriage decision was always that he believed it was an issue for the individual states to decide. This is why he disagreed with the decision, but I've never heard him come out and really promise that he was devoted to overturning it. And even if he did manage to have that decision overturned or repealed, which is something to do, let me tell you, and we'll get into that in the next point, it would fall back to individual states to decide on the issue. It would not mean a blanket U.S. ban on same-sex marriage. States would continue to adopt same-sex marriage one at a time, as they had already been doing slowly but surely. And on his record of being a homophobe, since 2000, he has supported legal unions that would grant same-sex couples all the same rights and privileges of married couples without the word marriage, but that's just semantics. And again in 2000, he supported including LGBTQ status in the 1964 Civil Rights Act, something that actually didn't happen until 2015. And again in 2000, he stated that if he ever made a run at the presidency, he would have no problem appointing LGBT people to his cabinet. And then there was that moment when Trump got a huge audience of Republicans listening to his RNC acceptance speech to cheer and applaud him for pledging to support and protect the rights and safety of LGBTQ Americans. And for anyone who is really, really worried about his choice of Pence, in 2015, Pence pissed off a huge, huge number of evangelicals in his state and elsewhere by taking guidance and accepting pressure from business leaders and LGBTQ rights groups and changing the language in the Religious Freedom Reform Act he had recently signed that would have allowed businesses to discriminate against gays. Pence lost a ton of his base support among evangelicals because he acted to prevent legal discrimination against gays. Now, I'm pretty sure some Trump supporters, evangelicals, or otherwise might be a little annoyed by this, but I'm certainly not. Nor was I particularly upset by Trump's suggestion that the same-sex marriage question really should have been an issue of states' rights. Arguably, it should have been. Nothing I have seen from Trump indicates to me that he's a homophobe, and while Pence might be, he has demonstrated himself willing to put his duty as an elected representative, which means representing all your constituents, not just those who voted for you, and not just those who are most likely to give you money, and not just those with whom you most agree, ahead of his personal feelings on an issue that seems to be very, very close to his heart. Point 5. Roe v. Wade. I don't know how this is going to be managed, that it's just going to fall to the states, given that we're talking about a SCOTUS decision that's 40 years old. Neither Congress nor the president has the power to overturn a SCOTUS decision. There are only two ways to do it: through a constitutional amendment, which is quite the undertaking, or through SCOTUS overruling its prior decision. And that requires a lot of things. It requires an individual or group to bring a federal case, to have that federal case accepted to be heard by SCOTUS, and then for that case to be won. Previous attempts at overturning Roe v. Wade have largely failed because SCOTUS's heavy reliance on precedent has blocked those attempts. Deeply pro-life Supreme Court Justice Anthony Kennedy has twice voted against quashing Roe v. Wade based on the bench's adherence to precedent. Now, I think Roe v. Wade was a shaky decision with not a lot of substance and plenty of legal gymnastics to it. And I actually think there are better and more substantive arguments in favor of abortion rights, like bodily autonomy and bans on forced servitude. Those are easy arguments that could be made before a court, easier than the argument of privacy that formed the basis of Roe v. Wade. But regardless of all of that, even with a majority of conservative judges, even with a majority of pro life judges on the bench, there's no guarantee that it's ever going to be overturned. And it would take more than overturning Roe v. Wade to make abortion illegal across the U.S. States that want it would keep it. States that don't wouldn't. And until a successful argument is made and affirmed by SCOTUS that abortion in and of itself is in violation of the Constitution, the worst that will ever happen is that a woman's right to abortion will be upheld in some states and vitiated in others. Women will have to get on a bus and cross state lines to get their abortions. Point 6. Muslims. First off, you're talking to one of those horrible, awful, no good, really bad Islam apologists here. And despite this, Islamic terrorism is a serious worry for me, as it is for many of the moderate Muslims I know and am friendly with here in Canada, and I'm sure a lot of moderate Muslims in the US. Maybe tightening immigration rules, or even just enforcing the ones the US has already, would help more than a blanket ban on Muslims entering the country. Now, I'm sure that this relaxing of what he was saying early in his campaign will probably piss off some of the people who voted for him, but backpedaling on a blanket ban doesn't bother me, and I suspect it doesn't bother a lot of other people who supported Trump, including several Muslims who have told me they voted for him. Is Trump backpedaling on his stance that the refugee targets set by Clinton are way too high? Not that I've seen. Has he suggested he's no longer concerned about ISIS's promises to sneak operatives into the West among legitimate refugees? Not that I've seen. Were all the anti-Trump Muslim American citizens who were, with the help of their white guilt allies, whipping everyone into a frenzy of chicken littling prior to the election, happy with this turn of events? Are they relieved? It's really hard to say, given how the response to this softening of his attitude is more about savoring their predicted outpouring of salt from all 59.6 million rabid, irredeemable Islamophobes who voted for Trump, an outpouring that has failed to substantially materialize as yet.
You mad, bro?
Not particularly.
Ha 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 ha! Your butthurt is so delicious. Your anus is so stretched right now. How does it feel to be betrayed by that bigot you voted for?
Well, first off, I never thought he was a bigot. I wouldn't vote for someone I thought was a bigot. And second, I don't feel betrayed. It's not like he was calling for a permaban on Muslims entering the country. He said, until we know what the hell is going on. I really don't think he's stopped being concerned by, with Islamic terrorism, but, I have Muslim friends who are decent people. And it's not like I wanted them deported or anything.
Oh my god, the salt! The salt! Your great leader has gone back on his promises. All you Islamophobes are so butthurt, it's glorious.
Dude, what are you even talking about?
Cry some more, Islamophobe!
These people are too busy gloating to even consider the possibility that Trump might not be an Islamophobe. And maybe his supporters aren't primarily Islamophobes either. And you'd think they'd be happy about that possibility, but they can't seem to let go of their preconceptions of Trump and his supporters long enough to actually wonder if they might have been wrong about us, let alone be relieved by his stance on the issue now that he's been elected. And point 7. Cannabis? How is this a problem? Was there like a war against cannabis that he was waging, that I just missed because I guess I skipped a day of the coverage? I mean, and shouldn't that be appropriately considered a states' rights issue? I mean, Trump's consistently supported states' rights. You can see it in his primary objection to the decision on same-sex marriage, which he thought should be an issue of states' rights. You can even see it in his objection to Roe v. Wade, which he came out and said would be a states' rights issue if it was overturned. Why would he see legalizing or decriminalizing cannabis as something that doesn't fall under the umbrella of states' rights? The libertarians who supported Trump would support this given most of them see individual rights as paramount. The war on drugs is a waste of taxpayer money that only consolidates power centrally, and mass incarceration for nonviolent victimless crimes to be in violation of their principles. I doubt Tea Partiers, even if they're really anti-cannabis, would care very much one way or the other. I mean, if it'll shrink centralized government and lower the tax burden, lower spending, right? Even the most anti-drug faction of the Tea Party would probably be willing to hold its nose and focus on the silver lining. And frankly, half the alt-right internet bigots and haters who post dank Hitler memes and worship at the altar of Pepe when they aren't surfing 4chan, those guys are probably knee-deep in reefer themselves. I'm sure they're totally outraged by the idea of one day being able to get a joint along with their Mountain Dew and Doritos at the 7-Eleven. I mean, one-stop shopping is just horrific. But yet everyone who supported Trump is butthurt because some states put cannabis on the ballot and now it's legal in more parts of the country than ever. Like, what? Are you people so obsessed with partisanship that you can't conceive of any person who would have preferred Trump to Hillary agreeing with you on anything at all?
HuffPo fucking told you that Trump wanted to mass murder kittens, and you voted for him, which obviously means you want to see kittens die by the millions, and now he's backpedaled on his totally 100% accurately reported kitten murder campaign promise. You mad, bro? How does it feel to be betrayed by the monster you voted for, you kitten-hating monsters?
When did Trump mention kittens again? I actually must have missed that. Anyway, I feel pretty good about what he's said he's going to focus on since he got elected.
Ha 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 ha! Cry some more, bigot! Your great leader was less of a bigot than you thought he was, and now he's Wait, I didn't mean that quite the way it came out. Your great leader was less of a bigot than I thought. Okay, wait, no, that's still not right. Your great leader is still a total bigot, but the wall, ha 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 ha! You're not getting your wall. Oh, the butter, the salt, so tasty. You got screwed.
You know, for someone who apparently got screwed, the butt hurts never felt so good.
Even tarantulas aren't immune from an ambush. This centipede is a predator. Centipede.